Okay, welcome everyone. Thanks again for joining us to part 3 of our presentation by the San Jose Earthquakes. Going to jump right in. A quick reminder though of the housekeeping rules. Your cameras are off, you're automatically on mute. Please use the Q&A icon for questions and we'll take the questions throughout the presentation. Benjamin will be sort of monitoring the questions, screening the questions, and we'll go from there. Benjamin, I'll hand it over to you to introduce the panel. We are recording this. We'll make it available afterwards, so feel free to make as many notes as you can, but we will record this if there's any parts of the presentation that you missed. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Benjamin, who'll introduce our panelists, and we'll get rocking and rolling. Benjamin.
Okay, I'm going to quickly do this and get out of the way so we can start to enjoy this. We have Alex Covelo, Luciano Fusco, and Erin Ridley, all of the Earthquakes, and this should be very enjoyable. Adios.
Thank you, Ben. Hello, everybody. Thank you for to be here today with us again. And well, thank you for NorCal to invite us to San Jose Earthquakes. I think we feel part of the NorCal family right now. And very quick, I would like to do a recap in relation with the 2 last webinars that we did, guys. And after that, I will leave the lead to Erin and Luciano in order to show you what does it mean for us, the training session in relation with the perception and cognitive part. The last 2 panels, we were talking about how and what work on the cognitive part. If you remember, in relation with how to collect information, we were talking about the open side of the player without ball, and in order to collect very well the information in relation with the team with the player with ball, and in what way he can collect as much information as possible. And that was in relation with the body orientation, okay, and also was in relation with the blind side. Remember that we put some examples about how the players, they lose the ball because they don't control what's going on in their blind side, and the most part of the lost balls that happens during the game is because they don't check shoulders and they don't recognize that part. In relation with the what, we were talking about the spaces in order to advance or destabilize spaces in between lines. Other what was identified that their rivals in order to understand if we can advance or not, or we need to play to protect the ball possession, or we can go forward, and identify open teammates, which can be directly, we can play them directly, or we need to find another solutions to find these open teammates. Here we saw some examples in relation with the game. We put some examples in relation with the San Jose Earthquakes first team, some practices. And today, as we saw, we said the last panel, we are going to show you how to implement that during the training session. Today, we are going to see the whole training session from the for the U13s and U15s teams. In order to introduce better what does it mean for us, this part, we need to explain you guys what kind of training structure we have in our club. And normally when the coach arrives to the field and he finds the whole team, the first thing that we do is to introduce the game objective that we are going to touch during this training session, the whole week, or during different weeks, okay? The second part in this structured training A, we have a game form, which is a game that the players are playing in the field in order to discover what is the objective and solutions in order to work on this objective. After that, we have the tactical situation. I'm not going to go in deep because the coaches are going to explain you better. But in order to see the structure, in the fourth point, we have the technical exercise, and we finish with the final game. In the structure B, you can see here how we change the game form with the technical exercise. So we have this flexibility to introduce the technical exercise before the game form, or work with the game form before the technical. Okay, this is up to the coaches. Obviously, all the training sessions are according with the game objective that the coaches are choosing. Here we can see our game model. Maybe you cannot read all of them, but we have different moments during the game when we are attacking, when we are defending, and the transition moments. Today, Erin and Luciano are going to put the emphasis, and they are going to show during their training sessions those objectives. For Erin, he's going to work on create positional advantage. So that means in between lines, or the spaces between lines. And for Luciano, it's going to be how we destabilize the opponent, and more concretely, on marching behind the last line. All this in relation with the cognitive elements that they introduce during the training sessions. So from here, I'm going to leave the lead to Erin. And Erin, please, if you want to share your screen, I'm going to stop mine, and enjoy, guys, because it's going to be fun.
Great. Thank you, Alex. It's great to be on here with you and Luciano. Really excited to speak about this topic. And we've done a lot of work with the boys this season on this, particularly as it's a very foundational sort of element for players at this age group to start to learn how to do this. There's a large emphasis on that. So one of the, let me see here. So one of the objectives we wanted to bring to the forefront here was this idea of how to create positional advantages between lines. So when we're thinking about this idea of using perception to gain an advantage, quite simply, when players come and show for the ball, if they can turn and utilize the space, they need to be able to perceive that they can do that. So we are working in this session to give a full session example of how to create this positional advantage, how to have a player optimize their field of vision to recognize that, and to do that when they've identified a free space in between the lines. So again, just a reminder, if a player comes to find the ball and a defender comes with them, they're not between the lines, right? So this is a moment where there's a moment of time and space that a player can turn. So they have to identify that. So one of the first ways that we've done this, and we've done quite a few different variations with the boys in this type of technical exercise. As Alex mentioned, there are a couple of different training structures that we use. In particular with this U13 age group, the emphasis on the technical and the individual technical fundamentals is huge. So what you'll see is that this kind of introduction starts primarily with this sort of idea of how to do this. So teaching players how to change their field of vision, how to maximize that field of vision. So this is an exercise we've done quite a bit, and this is just simply an organization that has 3 zones. The objective is to move the ball through these zones and to think about how we can get players to find the widest possible field of vision. So with 12 and 13-year-olds, what we found is they're very good at coming to the ball, but there's a really technical piece to being able to open the body and to be able to change their focus on the player with the ball to a space behind them. So they're essentially changing this entire sort of perception that they have of looking at the ball and then controlling their blind side. So first and foremost is introducing that idea of language. I think it's important with players of this age group to speak about that. What is it to say? What is a field of vision? What does that look like? What is a blind side? How do we define that? So kind of starting with that common base of language and then going into the exercise, you can see how players will move into spaces. And I'm going to show a demonstration of this. It's very simple, but it's very detail rich. So we have the ball moving and then players opening to come find the ball. And so we transfer the ball to the right, we can transfer the ball to the left. And then as it comes back, this is just a very fast way of progressing through different things. Now I'm giving them freedom to decide which player do they want to play to. So you can kind of see as they go, they can decide, and as they play different players, it becomes a little bit more organic in how they want to how they want to choose based on what they're opening and seeing. So no defenders here, it's completely unopposed, but really some important elements here are about the timing of the movement, the ability to open the body to receive across the center of the body to open the ball to the higher foot, and to be able to perceive what's beyond them. So they're coming into a space where now their teammates are in their blind side, potential opponents are in their blind side. So how do they move to do that? There's also a recognition that there's perception from the players that are playing the ball. So them recognizing when is the right moment to release that ball, and the players that are making their movement into that space, knowing and perceiving when a player can actually play the ball. So very quickly in the exact same space, we progress from that technical exercise where, again, I would go to the right, to the left, and then give them some freedom to choose which way they'd want to go. For the sake of this exercise, just so the coaches that are watching, this is a session set up for approximately 16 to 18 players. So this would be 2 organizations of 8 players that are involved. So obviously in the last organization, you have players filling in. Now we add defenders. So now we make it where there's a technical and a tactical sort of implication to what they're doing. And so in addition to identifying their space to come into, and again, we're giving them this space because there is a free zone. In this exercise, defenders cannot come into the zone, but they can step to take away passing lines. And so again, the perception of what the direct opponent is doing and what information can be gained from that is what we're layering onto the technical exercise. So I'll give you an example of what that looks like here. So again, players are moving the ball until the time is right for a player to come into the space. Again, they open their body to perceive where the best option is, and then where the defender is potentially taking away the line of the pass. We play for a minute, so this game goes very quickly. Tempo is huge in this. So in all these exercises, as part of our game model that Alex mentioned, tempo is a massive piece of that. And also the pressure from the defender. This does not work if it's not part of your game model to press. It is part of ours. So this is not just for the attacking players. This is also for our defenders to have that feeling and that real sense of connecting with the game model of needing to press the player with the ball. So anything less than that is mandatory, that defenders press the ball, so that we get these interactions and we stimulate these sort of interactions over and over again. So I'll play that one more time because I think just so you can see it really quickly. Again, just seeing how it moves. And players, again, you give defenders points for winning the ball within the minute. So if a player steps to win the ball here, great, they win the point, it restarts, and players gain points by transferring the ball from one end player to the other. So you make it competitive, make it quick, and all players go through and play this. So looking at this in video, this is just a practical example of what this could look like. We've done this several times. So the space that we're talking about is about an 8x8 square connected by a 3-yard zone. As I mentioned, it's 1-minute games, so it moves very quickly. And you can see here we have the layout. So we have the 3v1 here in this particular grid. We have the white player pressing. We have players coming into the zone. They only have 2 touches. So that is the other thing that we've mandated here, is to require them to know what they can do with what they perceived to be able to play the next pass. So this is how the game moves. So you can see this was not a point because the player took 3 touches. So it's still 0-0. As the ball is transferred and we're able to find the other player at the end, that's a point. And now when the defender wins it, that becomes 1-1. So it's really fascinating to see where it will break down. So we have sometimes players that are coming, maybe not showing the right body orientation. We have players that are trying to figure out how to utilize that space. And even though they know that zone is free, there's still that pressure, that visual pressure of a defender coming. So in these types of games, we like to ask them questions, so we refer to this section as a discovery game. So the questions that I would be asking them, and the examples that you just saw from the players there, are things like, how can you position yourself to see more of the field? Where is there free space? And obviously we've identified that for them, but it's also important to know that in this game, players are moving in and out of that space. So they're opening it for someone else. And so they have to identify that perhaps it's advantageous for them to create a free space for another player to move into. So it's not just that the zone is so scripted that they know there's nothing to really perceive there. There is movement in and out of that space. And then there's the idea of how many teammates they can see beyond. So once they come down into an area where they are creating a blind space for teammates beyond, we want to ask them, how can you see more of them, and what cues is the opponent giving you? So how can you check and see? And in the next clip, I'm going to show a couple examples of players that are coming. And one of the things that I love to emphasize the most is how many looks can they take? So as they look and then they come and then they look again, even in the technical exercise that I showed you at the beginning, one of the things I'm emphasizing is that moment of looking when the ball is released. So can players now have a habit of looking once they know when the ball is coming? I think that's really challenging for 12 and 13-year-olds who are much more focused and much more comfortable on receiving the ball at their feet and then figuring out what to do with it. So you can just see a few more examples of that here, which I think are really fun to see as these guys are developing this. Even this is just one session. We've done this session several times, but you can see now this player coming into the space and looking, which is fantastic. You see the player that's about to receive the ball taking several looks. The player that was in the space or coming in the space wasn't there soon enough, so he perceived that and went back to the original player. Again, you can see this player looking for information, and he's seeing there that he's got to play a little bit quicker because of how close that defender is. So again, you can see these players working through the challenge that they face. It's not easy even with a free zone of space for them to put a lot of these elements together. I think in a lot of ways when we challenge them to add more things, such as taking their eye off the ball and changing their perception, it slows down their technical comfort ability, you know. So you see them doing things that they're not doing when they start the technical exercise. So but this is starting to get better. And then in this last clip here, you can just see where it really does flow in a way that we're sort of looking for. When have they shown that they get these ideas? So good, we see a lot of looking here, right timing to come into space, and then the recognition that he has time and space to open and play beyond. So some great examples there from the guys. And then basically from here, we go into a tactical situation. So we establish sort of a very similar structure. You'll see it's essentially taking the last exercise and creating a larger zone at the top. And now we've got two defenders. So anytime you add a second defender, it can change the context of what we're doing quite a lot. And we want to talk about this idea of gaining positional advantage. So this idea of coming in and creating time and space for a player on the ball faced forward. And now what can they do with that? So can we create a numerical advantage? Can we find a 2v1? Can we create a 3v2? And what can we do once we've identified the space, that we've identified that we have, we have a perception of what our direct opponent is doing and what they're giving us, and so what we can take advantage of with that, and then how can our teammates move into spaces that can help us solve the problem that the defenders are presenting. So again, I'll just show the kind of animation for this. I think it's a little bit more clear. So again, it's a 3v1, players moving in and out of the spaces to find the time when is right to open, and now we have a third player that can join and go to goal. So it becomes very lively with that. If defenders are able to win the ball, they transition to the mini goals and they can score. So it becomes a lot more game-like. This is set up for players on the field that would correlate to specific positions, but I think it's important to note that, especially, and Alex and Luciano may speak a little bit more about this, but specifically in our game model and our methodology, I should say our curriculum, we put a very low emphasis on the U13s on sort of the positional specifics. So players in our program are not trained specifically with a large amount of our time just at one position. We have players playing in all positions, and so the concepts that are relevant to this topic are relevant to all of the players that are on the field. So finally, we get to the final game. So we open it up, and so now we're incorporating all of these ideas about identifying the space between the lines, identifying the direct rival, and identifying where your open opponents are in order to take advantage of that. So we have now this game where it continues to be a 3-zone game. It is to goal. So we've added the goalkeepers into this. It becomes a sort of 8v8 where you have a 5v3 with a middle zone and then a 5v3. And so again, I think the animation probably shows it the best, but you can kind of see how this works. So again, looking at how can we create a rhythm and a tempo that allows us to play the player at the right moment and allows them to recognize these moments to come down and utilize the space that they've found for themselves and have a visual field that's open enough to take all the cues that we've worked on in this session for them. So hopefully I didn't run through that too fast. When I get excited about things, I talk very quickly. So if there are questions, I'm happy to kind of stop the share right there before we go to Luciano and see if there's anything from you guys that you wanted to ask more about.
Again, if you have questions, just pop them in the Q&A and we'll take them from there.
David, I will, while they are doing the questions, I would like to also to put emphasis in relation what the coaches are doing and are presenting right now. So as we saw, they were working on the objective that we have in our game model, you know, and they were working on finding this what, okay, in Erin cases, spaces in between lines. But because, as we said at the beginning of in the first panel, we don't have a very concrete block in relation with the perception and cognition. She was very good adding these elements that we were talking inside of the training session according with the game objective. So she was working on create positional advantages between lines, okay, as a team, and also for each individual player, but also putting emphasis in the way that they were looking for information at the moment where the ball was traveling, okay, and at the moment that they had to check if the pressure was coming or not. So all those things are the elements that we were talking before in relation with the cognition, and all of them mixed, you know, in the objective game that we have in relation with our game model. Yes, I wanted to emphasize that because I think it was very good, Erin.
Great, thank you. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, it was great. There are some questions coming in now. Benjamin, do you want to take the questions or?
I'm not seeing them.
They are Q&A. Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
You got it?
Yeah, are there common patterns in the aspect of this technique your under 13 players struggle with? And if so, have you noticed any common interventions you've successfully seen resolve this issue? And you can probably access these questions in the Q&A part.
Okay, great. So common patterns, you know, I think that I'm going to answer that in sort of what I would perceive as something where I think it breaks down a lot is the technical ability of a player to come in, to unmark and come into a space and change their focus to their blind side and back to the ball. I think that is more challenging than we think. I think that is for 12 and 13-year-olds, especially because there's even the moment that just the physical implication of unmarking, accelerating, decelerating, changing your body orientation, and also cognitively taking in information. There's a lot going on with that. And so I think if you do a passing pattern, for example, the technical exercise that I showed at the beginning, you can do it and transfer the ball, but it's very detail rich if you're asking the players to do it at the right time, with the right detail, with the right cues, and you check for their understanding of it. Do they really see what you think you want them to see, or are they going through it? So I think for me, that commonly is sort of what we go back to a lot. And you know, that's certainly not the only technical sort of passing pattern that we go through. The other side of that is sort of the progression to this, which I think is really important, is sort of the corollary, right? So what is the difference when a defender does come with you and you cannot turn? So now you're starting to add the decision that they make of, can I turn, to now adding passing patterns and solutions to what happens if a player does come and I cannot turn. And then that becomes a whole different sort of topic and intervention there. So I think once you start to build these things together, you sort of bring those ideas of their decision making to the front to say, you know, can you identify that? moment. And so it's not just the technical work, it becomes the actual defender's influence on their decision as well. So I hope that answers the question, but let's see if I can read it.
I flagged it as answered. So if you go to the answered, since you answered it, so you can still go back and get it.
Yeah. So I guess, so the next question is, would you ever progress to the level of pressure, passive to full pressure throughout the progression of the training plan, or is it consistent standard level of pressure throughout? Okay, so this idea of passive versus full pressure. So I would say there's sort of two ways to answer that. One, in a non-COVID world, we would not have passive pressure. There would never be in these types of exercises a way that we would ask a defender to defend that doesn't sort of reflect our desire to always put pressure on the ball carrier. We've had to make some adjustments for sure with COVID, and so I think the idea of keeping them in zones or keeping them restricted to certain behaviors has probably been more to the forefront of what we've dealt with when we've been constructing these types of exercises. But I see the value of passive defenders in the sense of giving players cues of why. I think it all depends on your environment. But I think for us, creating a defender that has a certain behavior and then creating a solution around that is probably the highest priority we can create. Players need to know the context of why do I need to do this? And if a defender is so passive that if the answer to them is like, well, wouldn't I just do this if the defender was here, and the defender's not presenting enough of pressure or a behavior that allows them to find an answer to what they're doing, I just think we have to be a little bit careful about that. So I would err towards
Yeah, I think that maybe the next two questions are more big picture. And I think if at the end we can maybe come back to them depending on the time. But I think the questions were specific to the training. Thank you very much. And I think Luciano, you taking over now?
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Excellent.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yes. Yep.
So like Alex explained before, I'm gonna be talking a little bit more about getting a mark in behind the last line. Okay. So what form the what? It's spaces to advance. If the ball is open or closed, which is when the ball is pressed or when the ball is not being pressed. And then where is the spaces and why? It's because we want to get in behind, okay, destabilize. So those are little reference, but now I'm going to mention the reference that we use to create reference for the players, okay? So let's say I have this topic that, okay, we need to destabilize, we need to make rounds in behind, which is what I want the players to understand. I want them to develop a better cognition about this specific area. So building the what. How do I build the what? How do I build the image that I want to introduce to the player? First, where I am. Where is this situation? So for this topic is going to be Zone 1, Zone 2, which is for us will be in the middle and or defending third. Okay, that's where we're gonna be. That's where this situation is going to happen. And then this reference is crucial in everything we do. It's the ball press, we call it close, or it's the ball open. And that is a reference that we always tell a player. It's the ball close or it's the ball open. It's the ball press or it's the ball non-press. So then, if the ball is non-press, so if the ball is open, which is very important for the topic that we are going to talk today. Usually, if I make a running behind the last line, it's because the ball is open. Otherwise, it's going to have to be another type of support. And hopefully that is clear. If I make a run behind the last line to destabilize, the player, my teammate, doesn't have pressure. That's why he can pass it to me behind the last line. And So now we need to come back even further in order to understand the picture and to build, to construct the reference of the what. The what, remember that the what is what image I want the player to see clearly, okay? So, all right, when it's the ball open, it's a question. Situations. The ball is open when someone receives with a positional advantage. For example, if a player came in between lines, like Erin to explain, and turned, ball is open. Now, the ball is open if one of my teammates beat someone in a 1v1. So I beat someone, now I'm dribbling, now I'm open, the ball is open, unless someone else steps. Also, the ball is open after a combination. I combine 1, 2, I'm open, ball open now. And also the ball is open when we, through a combination also, can identify a free player or a third man, okay? These are situations to the ball to be open. The players that are gonna make the running behind must understand all of them, okay? And they gotta get familiar. And we have to create images, the what, for that. And the other reference is like, now, it's what is the direct opponent doing? It's the direct opponent marking me. So now I behave differently because he's marking me. Or the direct opponent, it's controlling more the zone, more the space, which makes me move in behind at different time and differently. So the two reference, ball open, ball close, direct mark. It's a with me or it's a more in the space. All these are gonna help us to construct different images that are making the what. The what is what I'm showing, what we are showing to the player. Very important, this reference, because they help us. This is the reference that we use to build a session. All right, so let's start with a technical exercise, okay? Which should be right after if it's not a warm-up. All right, what do I want to show the players? The whites are passive defenders, okay? These guys are passive defenders, but in this structure, you can always, in the rotation, you can always, okay, now that I'm rotating, I can become the passive defender, and then I am the active attacker, from passive defender to active attacker. So I want in this technical exercise to recognize what my direct mark is doing, okay, and what is the space to advance. How can I make a running behind, okay, which is when the space is already there or when someone else create a space. So I'm going to show 3 progressions, okay. Number 1. And you see the rotation because it's going from one side to another. Okay, so I want to go now slowly because I want to show the reference. So the same one. Now, the situation is this one here. And so what you see is that, okay, what we want to create is a player that receives in a positional advantage, receives and does what? Dribbles. This is the open ball that we were mentioning. This is one of the reference. But this is the guy that we are coaching today. This is the guy who needs to recognize that. So what does this guy need to recognize? Okay, what the 9 is doing. It's the 9 stepping here. It's the 9 following me. If he follows me, I also create space. So now I can take the space in behind. So we put in a tactical part, like a little bit of a choreography. So he can start understanding open ball dribble, man marking here. So now what we do is, okay, boom, I make that running behind. Okay, that's the first. And again, I show the progression. So now the second situation, it's a little bit different. Now the situation is, let's go here. Okay, so what we added, what picture did we add here? What image is this? Now this player moves, but this player doesn't follow. So now this player turns. So when he turns, this happens, which is pretty common. So we say, okay, we combine 1, 2 in order to create space. Combine, pop, there, and now this ball becomes open. Who needs to read? It's this player and this player. Now, in this, we added a third player, but you could do it with this guy too. So, and then you can say, if he steps right here, now he's open. And you can introduce that. Now, I choose to add this player. So, what's the picture? What's the image? What's the what? Let's say, what's the what? The what is out of a combination, 6, out of a combination, he moved, and now open ball. So when this ball is playing back and the ball becomes open, can I, because the defender is right there with me, the defender is not so now. The defender is with me. Because he's with me, I can take the space. If the defender would be here, now the pass and the opening is more here. So this is the what on the technical part. On the okay? And then we get right there. Then I don't show the next of it. And the other picture, we're going fast. This is more like a thermal interaction for us, okay? Okay, so now we're going again. There. What's the third picture is now he must understand that this guy is not open. So he is the open. So now I must come, and this player now, the distal player, it's seeing all this interaction. It's not this guy, so it's here. So now I open the ball through this player to this player, which we call thermal, right? That's another way to get the ball open. But look at what happened here. Now, this player took this new space, so this is why I must take another space. So now, this player take the space that this player leaves, which is another way to create space in a different open ball situation. Okay, so this is the technical, right? Bravo. So we keep going. All right, we do all this. We show 3 image, and by the way, we always do this. Now, in the last part, depending what the passive defender does, the next action comes. I'm not going to show it. I'm going to leave it up to you. Because now, if the defender moves this way, the outlet is a thermal. If the defender closes the zone, now the outlet is a positional main open to dribble. And you can see how we can progress. So, after the technical, we could do, oh, hold on. I didn't want to do that. There. Now we move into the exercise. The exercise that we choose is a very simple one. It's 4v4 with 4 neutrals outside. Okay? Now, instead of images, now is rules. With rules, we provide an image. So the first rule in this exercise, so the neutrals has 1 or 2 touches, always. But then inside, we create a scoring criteria. So let's say in the first one, the scoring criteria will be receiving in behind. Okay? Receiving in behind is a way to score. Now, the rule is the players inside, okay, have to receive in behind their direct marks, but the direct marks are always the same. They cannot change marks. So this couple are always together. This couple are always together. I cannot go and press another player's mark. So they stay right there. Okay? So with that rule, we optimize, we stimulate the movement. So now I have clear structure. Okay, my reference, which is the player, my direct mark always with me. How can I get in behind him? Then, for the neutrals, they always have 1 or 2 touches, but no one can press them. And the only way to score is by receiving in behind. So I show the example. So I show it, okay? So everyone with their marks, now we need to start moving. That's a point. That's not a point. That's a point, okay? And that's a point, all right? So it's a multi-dimensional exercise, meaning that it goes, you can move directly. It's a possession exercise because the objective is to get a mark, all right? But it has a clear criteria, how to score and what are we looking for, okay? I can now help the players. The question will be, what is the defender doing? Now, how can you create a space in behind? All right? Can you move? And we use this word a lot, counter movement. If I come and the defender follows, I'm leaving space in behind. But now we're gonna go through this again. So the first thing that needs to happen is that, space. If everyone is close, there is no space. So now we push, we push, we push, so the marks must follow. So now we create space. So now if we go here, so look how the 10 comes to the ball, the 8, to create space in behind. It's very important that these marks here on the distal side are with the men, but in this side. Because sometimes they're gonna cheat, they're gonna try to be right here, they're gonna try to be right here. No. You must explain this, how the couple needs to behave. So now, if I come and the 10 comes with me, now this guy, can I play this ball? The ball is open. We provide that. So can I make a movement in behind? And this is the behavior that we want to do because our topic is making runs in behind the last line. Okay? So now, that is going to happen. Okay? Now look at how the 11 comes to the ball, and with the 11 also comes the men, because we told the men to be men on men. It's a rule. So now the 11 should, through the exercise, understand and feel this better. So now I know, I can move in behind. And that's a point. Okay? And then a lot of things are going to happen in this game. But what we want is that the probabilities to receive in behind are higher. If the probabilities are higher, the game is good because they will do it. Okay? So then we go. Okay? And then things like this are going to happen. Sometimes they're going to come the way in behind. And now the other situation, my teammate leave the space and I can take a new space and I get behind the 4, behind this guy. All right, perfect. And this is another one because even though this looks like going forward, the multi-dimension of the exercise help I can go here, but I can go right there. All right, so there we go. Good. And then there are 2 more criteria that I put right now. So now I change. Now my next step can be, now you can change marks. So I can press my guy, but I can also press another guy. It's a rule, all right? And I'm gonna make it a little bit shorter because in the last example, 2 things are gonna happen. And I can also change and progress. We can also press the neutral. Every time that we change a rule, the behavior that we want will change. Why do I do this? Well, because now I want a different situation for them to recognize how to get in behind. So the criteria score, so now it's not just receiving in behind, but also a combination play, it's a point. Why do I want that? Because now I want an open ball out of a combination play. All right? All right, so I'm going to show this example, which involves both, and you'll see. Let's see a little bit. A combination could happen. Movement of the neutrals always. And that will be the first point. That will be another point. Okay? So a lot more things are going to happen right now. So, and I go. So first, about the open ball. Okay? Remember that now they can switch marks. Okay? They don't need to follow. And now this guy is a little sleepy and this guy receive open. So now a point is a combination play. So they will try to look for these type of situations right now. That, pass and move, because that is a point, okay? But also a point will be to receive behind. So look at the 8, ideally tries to do that. And if he does a good job, that won't happen. So now the neutral moves. And now we keep playing. And there. Can you see now how the rule changed the whole scenario? Now, because he can press the neutral, now we need now the ball open will be there. And that will be the point. Because now they can press the neutral and they can change the mark. So receiving in behind takes another meaning. Okay? So that's how a possession game with a specific rules and a specific scoring criteria will approximate us to making runs in behind, which is still not behind yet. It's behind the opponent so far. So now we progress to the tactical in a session, right? This is one session. Okay, tactical situation. So now, like Erin used the zone to receive a player in between line, we are using the zone to open ball, to make sure that the open ball happens there. Because what we are going to make sure that happen is that the spaces here recognize the spacing behind to advance, which is the what? Which is the topic, behind the last line. So we provide different situation. In the game, we're going to advance dribbling, okay? As a first situation. Now, you see how that it's going to happen. How is that going to happen? With a little rules, okay? That I will describe right now. I just show how the new structure will be, but the rules of this will be like this. So in this game, they play with a neutral, okay? You don't have to, but I wanted to add a bigger numerical advantage so they can advance a little bit easier. Otherwise, you don't get what you want to get. So now it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 versus 4. So now once the 3, the 2, advance here, they cannot follow because my coaching mode is here. Okay, so now all this is going to happen, all right? And hopefully we get that. So now they don't follow, but we get this situation. And here comes open ball, and here is direct mark with me. I have direct marks. There's no sono. These 3 guys cannot cannot drop back. Like it's not delay the play, no. So, and one of these guys is gonna have to press the ball as soon as he comes. And this is how these 3 guys are gonna see how to get in behind. So now I come, when I come, I must try to move in behind the land side and identify the moment to make the running behind. So we will be focusing here in this part of the session. All this will happen, but our focus is here. When to make runs in behind. What are the reference? Where is my direct mark? Is it with me? Is it sono? Now it's with me. What is the reference? Is the ball close or open? He's dribbling with an open ball. Okay? Now, it will happen very often. And again, once they attack, the new structure, it's for the other team. And I put 2 different situations because, yes, we put 7 and 11, but the structure can be also be like that. Now they will be more like 8 and 10s. We just want, at a young age, the kids to experience scenarios, and we don't emphasize a lot, like Erin say, in the specific position, okay? All right, open ball on a dribble, all right? Reference man on man, but runs in behind. All right. I want to make sure that also we understand this. I'm adding, we add a little bit more of rules and a little bit more of examples just for the webinar. Sometimes only one, it's enough. The tactical, when we dribble, that's it. That may be enough. Now I'm adding out of a combination, okay? And the rule is only the 7 and the 11, the white players can come in the combination zone, in that zone, to connect, okay? So the only way to advance is out of that. So it will look something like this now. I need to come to connect, okay? So this will open up, again, the same type of white. So what is it? So now I'll go slow. We get here pretty much to same point. Anytime that you want to add the rule, one player can come and defend. If this player was present, you could do it. Okay, that's up to you and up to the level of the players. I'm just trying to now an open ball out of a combination in order to make runs in behind. So this is where I wanted to get into that situation. Now, these guys, the distant players, need to see the new open ball. Now he's not dribbling at me, but now I'm reading this and that. The 11 must recognize that now the running behind is after my laid off. So I laid off over here, and what is this guy doing? Is he pressing? Is he with me? Is he pressing? Okay? So now look at what happened. He came. So this player now could be an option. And now this player needs to make the running behind. He could stay with 11 and the 3 could have now again dribble again. That would be a possibility. So now the 11 instead of the 9, instead of come, he would do the same thing in behind. Okay? So now a new situation, we keep making runs in behind. Okay? Making runs in behind out of a dribble, making balls in behind after the combination, and the last one. Now I let the 9. I let this player to come to this zone. No this guy, no this guy. I want to make something very specific here. The fact that he comes into the zone does not mean that any of these guys can play them, okay? It just gives me a better understanding. So now I'm gonna put an example where the 9 comes and we use the 9 to liberate the midfielder. And just this situation expose this player and this player to make runs in behind. A little bit different than before. Okay? So with those rules in the tactical game, letting different people to come to the zone, allowing different type of entries in the zone. 1, on the dribble, 2, in a combo, and then who come to connect. Allow me to create different watts. So what I did now, I create different pictures of the watt. And then I let them play. Now, then I can say, anyone can come with the same song, okay? But then I go after the final game. If I could, I think I can right now. No, let this graph finish. And this is my final game, okay? Now they're gonna play, but I just do 2 things. 1, this is an offside line. Here is the offside line. This white, it's an offside line. So that means that if we attack that way, this is an offside line. So if they're here, they're offside, okay? And if we attack this way, this is the offside line. And then I put a confrontation line. So I can go, first set, play, offside line. Let's see what comes up. Now, but I say, one of the center back step up and press So now he can step to the center back, one center back steps to the midfielder, and this night press right here. So now the scenario is going to be a lot of high pressure. So maybe they will open the ball a lot more by combination or by the dribbling. If I dribble and I open the ball, now we need to react to that. So that's my set. Okay, and they play, and they play, and they play. And I know those situations are going to happen often. And if I don't see the kids understanding the picture, all right, maybe we interfere. But another set, and hopefully this is a question, I would say now the pressure is in the confrontation line. That means that these guys can rotate the ball, but we cannot come to press right here. And David, I would love to ask, what do you think may happen now if there is a confrontation zone? What type of, always thinking about the topic of making runs in behind, what do you think, what type of interaction may happen? And if one or two guys write an idea, I will be happy because I want to end it like that before I say it.
Yeah, you can put it in the chat, guys. Use the chat. I'm going to open the chat up so all panelists and attendees. So yeah, go ahead and put it in the chat if you don't mind.
The question will be, what's the confrontation line for? In the topic, running behind, running behind the last line. Okay, and I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to leave it right there for Alex to make sense of all this.
So we get one brave person, Logan Lee, put down his thoughts. If anyone else wants to throw in the chat, that would be great. The chat is open.
David, do you wanna read the answers to Luciano or?
Yeah, I can do that. So Logan Lee said, I guess they will recognize the ball is open when it is players behind the confrontation line, and that perhaps that player will dribble across the confrontation line. And if it makes more sense for you to read it, just click on the chat and you can see it in the chat.
That's very good. The idea is that now the distal players, the players on the top, if the confrontation line it's low and they are a little bit high and the ball is open, now it will add another stimulus, like a pass in behind the back line, but always encouraging players to make runs in behind the last line. And not just when someone comes to dribble, not just when someone open the ball out of a combination, but also, hey, we can now go through, ball is open, we can thread with runs in behind. And again, I want to finish this saying that different norms, different rules, different pictures, they don't need to be done all in one training session. One or two could be enough. We did 3 today just to make the webinar more rich. That was the only reason.
May I ask one question of Luciano? How often or do you add a neutral player into your final game? In the methodology or?
Final game, we didn't have any neutral player, man.
But do you?
It will depend, maybe. But it will depend. Usually, we don't, in the final game, usually we don't, but sometimes we may have to.
Yeah. Okay.
But also, I think that in relation with the final game, as Luciano mentioned it, you know, it depends on the day of the week, because if we want to emphasize a lot of dictated rhythm, that and we are looking a lot of have the control of the game when we have the ball, we can use a neutral player. So in order to make easier that game, but overall for the younger ages, guys.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, that's true.
Well, I think Luciano, was very good. I think was you touch a lot of points. I think one of the main points is the open ball, close ball, you know, which means a lot. Paolo knows, you know, the concept of open ball, close ball, because it's come from Italy, palla coperta, palla scoperta, and from there you can work with into a lot of items, no, or topics. I think that Luciano explained very well the way that he was trying to connect the runs in behind with the spaces to advance in relation with the what. Sometimes the spaces to advance is behind the last line, which was a topic that he was showing. Sometimes is in other intermediate zones, but that also means that this is space to advance. I think it was very, very clear, Luciano. And remember this, guys, from the open and close ball, you can have all, you know, you can have all. Is huge. The only thing that I would like to add in relation with Luciano and Erin is that for the younger ages, you know, between 8 years old, I don't know if you coaches, some of you are coaching the 8 years old until the 11 years old, because our structure of the training session has 5 points, 4 or 5 points. If you have to take out one of them, I would recommend you personally to take out the tactical part, you know, for the younger ages. And I'm going to explain you what, because the tactical part you have to stop and correct a lot, you know, and that is very, very specific. And I think that when you have 8, 9, 10 years old, you can add these tactical concepts during the game. So sometimes we are confused about, okay, if I don't do the tactical exercise, I'm not going to teach tactics, which is wrong. I think also during the game forms, you can teach a lot of tactics, as we saw today. And hopefully this is clear, because sometimes we are confused, okay, I let them play, this is not tactics, you know, and I use the tactical part in order to teach tactics, which is, I think sometimes is wrong. During the game form, you can teach tactics, as we saw today with Luciano and Erin. You know, I think this is very, very important, because if not, the player, the kid with years, 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old, is going to be boring. He could be boring, you know. I just wanted to add this. Thank you so much.
Bruno, there's a few questions, general questions, and if you have a few more, feel free to put them in the Q&A. We do have a few more minutes. Question about, and I think this may have been covered in the previous webinars, but just to reiterate, how much do you teach and explain decision making, or is it more play and let the players develop the cognition on their own?
I think that as we saw in our training structure, the game form allowed to the player to discover a little bit the solution, but always from the introduction of the coach, because the coach at the beginning, he's going to use the topic, the objective. The player is aware that what he needs to work on. And then during the technical and tactical situation, you are going to correct even more, you know. I think that the players, they have to find the way and the balance between, okay, I'm going to discover by my own, okay, from the rules or the guidelines that the coach told me. And after, the coach is going to have more importance during the tactical part. I don't know if I answered the question with my English. Sorry, guys.
I think so. Another question. Sorry, 1 second, my printer was just going off there. How do you see the position of the offside line affect the decision to make runs behind the defender in the game setup? So the one that Fusco showed, how do you see the offside line affect the decision to make runs behind the defender in this particular game setup?
Lucho, before you answer, because I think that is a good point, this question, because Luciano was showing the open ball and close ball, you know, and he's going to explain you guys better why he put and why, in what terms affects this line, you know. I think it's a good question, because remember that in soccer, when the ball is open, in relation with the defenders, the first reaction of the defenders normally is to, as Luciano said, delay the play, you know. But because I think he wanted to work on make runs in behind, you know, he put that criteria and that rules in order to have success. But Luciano, all yours.
Well, Alex, you couldn't explain it better, I think. The reason of that line is to create the space that the players need for the topic to happen more often, for the probability of the topic to happen more often. So when you put that line, you keep the defenders higher a little bit more until the players that is dribbling or connecting find the C and they make the run. Because it's a developmental exercise, we want the players to experience, and then the players will self-organize. At the moment of the game and you don't have the line, they will be smart enough, you know, to go or not to go. But it's exactly what you're explaining.
What's another rule you could use for that?
For what?
To draw out that element. You wanted the team to press high, so what's another rule you could use?
Well, something that we use also very often is you coach the other team. For example, for that to happen, what do you need to have? High pressure. If the team press high, you're going to have a higher line. So without using the rule could be we have to press the ball. You could also do that in order to optimize that space in behind.
How about you could say 4 passes?
I couldn't hear you.
Then you say 3 or 4 passes equals a point, so the team has to come to press?
Absolutely. That is up to the coach. In that sense, we usually like that ability. Like, again, if you dribble, it's on. And again, one of the reasons is also in a 1v1 duel, if they advance into the zone, the ball is already open. And if you make more passes, it may delay some opportunities. So it's up to you. But you could also do that.
Okay.
Luciano, I think that you show in the second exercise, you know, in the second part of the tactical, yes, the second example, you say that we must apply pressure, you know, and then we find through the third man, you know, that space. If you want to show, because this is another rule, even if you don't have the line, because we need to apply pressure to the ball, the free player, then the space becomes free, even if you don't have the line. I think that you show a very good example.
That is correct, because in the last game, the set 1 was high press, and the center back could go high to mark the defender, and the midfielder could go high to mark one of the center back, let's say. And high press, meaning that if the ball is played back to the goalkeeper, we can go. So what is gonna give us that high press? First, tempo there, and second is to find the open ball, which is pretty similar if you think about the game, the positional game, the possession game. And this is why Alex emphasized that the tactic doesn't only need to come from being in your position, because in this case, the tactic was to open the ball to create the runs in behind. Okay, so the high pressure was going to create combination of third man, absolutely third man. Third man is to open, to find the open player in order to advance. And because there is a high press, what is also going to be space in behind.
Hey, Luciano, Harris has asked a couple of questions, and I'm going to allow him to talk because they're pretty deep.
No, I don't want Harry's question. Sorry.
Okay, Harris, I've opened your mic, so it's quite a lengthy question. Some of the words are quite scientific, so I don't want to make a mess of it. So go ahead and ask your question, Harris.
Got it. Thanks, guys. Can you hear me?
Hi, Harris, how are you?
Yeah. How are you guys? So thank you so much for doing this. I had a question about what Benjamin was asking earlier, and that was the use of the neutrals. And you said that it would depend on your weekly structure or your morphocycle. Can you talk a little bit about your weekly structure and some rules about using neutrals that you have? That's my first question. And then I can also, the second question was, when you run a topic like this and you're talking about open ball, closed ball situations, and you're talking about playing between the lines and also looking to get in behind, how soon after do you give your defenders how to cope with those situations? Thanks.
Alex.
Yeah, I think if you agree, guys, Lucho, I'm going to answer the first one, and you and Erin, if you want to answer the second one, because it's in relation with the exercises and trainings. So basically, in relation with your first question, Harris, I think it's a good point. Normally, during our week, we have Monday. We approach the week trying to correct certain things that we didn't do well during the game, okay? And also are in relation with our periodization. So, we call it provoke and anticipate, okay? That is going to be the first day of the week with the low intensity, with also trying to fix different objectives that we didn't work well during the game or also during the last week. So then we go to Tuesday, and Tuesday is more in relation with the individual duels, how to create and use the space, man marking situations. So then we don't use a lot of neutrals in that case, because what we are looking for is a lot of transition and a lot of duels. Then we go to the Wednesday. Wednesday for us is dictate the rhythm from the offensively part and defensively part. And because we want to dictate the rhythm, we need certain stability during our drills. And that's why we use more neutral players that day, because allow us to have more stability during the game. That means that we can create numerical superiorities around the field and allow us to understand better what we are going to look for. That's why I said sometimes during the week, we can use more neutral players even in the final game, because we are looking for have more control of that one. And then Thursday, we call it protect and strike, because it's in relation with when we already destabilize the opponent, in what way we finish the play or in what way we protect the goal. So that would be our structure during the week. I think that the last year, yes, we had a showcase in Stanford, and we explained you guys our structure during the week. But because here the first panel was in relation with the cognitive part, we didn't touch all these things. But we will be happy to show you the structure during the week and also our game model and periodization.
The second question will be more about when do we liberate the defender? Harris, did I understand you correctly?
So the second question was no. So this is more of a we moment. What would be the they moment? When would you discuss how to cope with open versus closed ball situations to your back line, and how to cope with defending between the lines? So basically the opposite reciprocal of this topic. Would it be something you do right after, or is that something completely separate?
Well, I can answer. That would be depending of what Alex said. It's a little bit depending on the mesocycle that you have, okay? For example, if usually on the mesocycle, we use 5 weeks and we pick 2 to 3 objectives, learning objectives that come directly from our game model, okay? So a good one, if there is a player receiving in between line, a good one will be not to let the player, so matching up the player so the player understand when to turn or when to. So what we will do is, it will be maybe a little bit, if it's being too easy during the game situation, okay? But it could be addressed and whenever we plan to address it. It's not going to be like in a week. For example, we got this one, now we got the opposite topic. No, it's going to be when the coach plans to address it.
Great, thank you.
So I think that rounds out our questions. Benjamin, do you want to come on and just sort of close us down here? And I think there's a great gratitude ode, and
There's gotta
Benjamin.
be questions. Come on, we've got these guys. No, I'm joking. Yeah, this has been tremendous. I think it's been very helpful for me, I know, and I'm sure for our coaches. So we have a huge amount of appreciation for the earthquakes and the people who presented today. And I especially appreciate, I believe the earthquakes have shifted gears and are very community, or have increased their involvement in the community. And it's returning to being the Northern California Club. And I think your relations with clubs and with other people and stuff like this has really helped. And I hope it continues. And just like if you're from Barcelona, you're an Espanyol fan. No, if you're the Northern California Club. So I appreciate it a great deal. And I speak on behalf of NorCal Premier.
Thank you, Ben.
Yeah, and I just want
Benjamin, David, sorry, I want to take also the opportunity to thank these panelists presented, Alex, Luciano, and Erin. I think, this series, I know enjoy, like I second Benjamin, enjoy a lot. Is an area, a topic then there's not been discussed much, and I think is an area that is very important in the development of a player, starting from the young age and stepping up. So really, thank you very much and appreciate it very much. Forza, forza.
thank you.
And
Thank you,
obviously,
Paul.
big thanks to David, then help to facilitate all this and be there every moment of those webinars. Thank you, David.
Alex, some last words of wisdom.
Sorry?
I said some last words of wisdom.
No. I think that I personally enjoy also listen Luciano and Erin. I think that there is anything better than to listen the coaches which represent the club, showing and explaining so clear, what we are trying to do here in San Jose Earthquakes. As you know, for us, it's about people, I think that all of us, we can grow as a coaches. We can grow and putting in our heads and minds a lot of concepts, but at the end of the day, it's about human beings, and we are happy to be here together. So I cannot say anything else than thank you, and thank you for also from all the coaches from San Jose Earthquakes and the staff and the partners and development, scouting department, and technical department. Thank you so much, Ben, Paolo, David, for hosting this.
Thanks again to everyone. And I just want to point out that everyone from the Quakes have volunteered all their time for these 3 webinars, and the amount of time and preparation they put into it just shows how professional they are and how willing they are to share their knowledge just for the love of the game and the community. So big thank you again. We recorded the webinar. We'll make it available tomorrow, along with we already have the other 2. And hopefully, we say this every time, but the next time we have a presentation is going to be on the grass, maybe next year at Stanford, or hopefully before then. But we thank everyone, and great to have Erin's insight as well, which was fantastic. Thanks for joining us today, Erin.
Earth. Quakes.
Crazy George.
Thank you, everyone. We'll be in touch with our plans for after the break. This is actually, we have one coming up. Hopefully next week. We're finalising with the Women's Committee, NorCal Women's Committee, and then we'll take a little break. We were crunching the numbers earlier today, and we've had 35 webinars since March, and over 8,000 people register. So we're going to take a 2-week break over Christmas and hit the reset button and come back. Hopefully we're not too many more, because the more webinars we have, the more time we have to be not on the field. So hopefully we'll taper it off a little bit, because we'll be doing what we love which is coaching. But thanks to everyone. Thanks, Benjamin. Thanks, Paolo. And again, thanks to the Earthquakes. Thanks for joining. Have a good day. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
You guys.